Right. We're live. Well, welcome everybody to the next episode of Architects of Wellbeing. I think that's what I'm calling it this week, but it changes every week at the moment. Guys, I'm super excited because today's episode we have human performance coach Charles Oxley. I've written down an intro, but it always just feels like so stupid to intro like someone who you class as a damn good friend like this. But I'm gonna read it out and we'll go through it, Charles.
Okay.
So on today's episode we have human performance coach Charles Oxley. Is that your job title at the moment, Charles?
Sure.
What box are you fitting in this week? I stole this from somewhere. Transitioning from the British music industry, Charles has been working as a trainer and coach for the past few years before he joined the Power of Speed and Endurance coaching team. From trekking in the Himalayas to the Sahara Desert, cycling across... I just wanted to read this and look at your face at the same time. Cycling across European countries or taking part in numerous endurance-based events, he has a long-standing passion for developing human performance and applying those principles to the wider population. Okay, that's what I stole off the internet, Charles. But let me get that. This is what I mean, right? Like, let me give the personal intro. Like, I am super excited to have a very dear friend of mine, Charles Oxley, with us here today. If anyone has ever been coached by me in the last few years, if anyone has ever been to any of my talks, if anyone has attended any of my webinars, if anyone has ever read any of my social media posts or ever had a conversation with me about stress, rest, energy, well-being, life, learning, development, growth, then in short, you are having a conversation with Charles Oxley, because my principles and my foundations have come out of a world of conversations that me and Charles have had consistently over the years. So, you know, you have helped make me the coach I am, which I love you, Charles. But dude, we've just spent our life shooting the breeze. How are you, my man?
Wow. Look at that.
I hate intros, but they're great.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's very kind. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, bro. Where did you find that initial breakdown?
Dude, I Googled it.
That sounds like that classic thing where like someone asks you to write a bio, you don't want to do it, and so they just ask you for facts about yourself and they write it for you.
Yes. It was on PSC's website, so you can have a word with those guys.
Yeah.
Where are you in the world?
Home.
Yeah?
Yeah. In sunny London. It's very nice.
Amazing. Well, look, I'm going to get straight to it. So on today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to stay motivated and consistent in training and self-development. So that's how to stay motivated and consistent in training and self-development. And to give everyone just a little bit of a context, some context as to why I've come up with this subject matter, or this question for today's episode, is recently I did the Happier, Healthier and Stronger survey. So I kind of sent out a survey and I had about 60 people respond to that survey, and it was basically 50 questions. And in essence, I wanted to understand the problems that I can help people fix when it comes to well-being, health, productivity, training, running, self-development, and so forth. And one of the consistent themes that was coming through was, how do I stay motivated? How do I stay consistent? It was almost like people understood the whats and the whys to the challenges that they face. Like, I know that I'm stressed. I know I need to rest more. I know, I would love to be able to read more. I'd love to be able to train more. I'd love to be able to eat healthy. Like, I'm aware of all this stuff. I'm also quite aware of the challenges that I face personally and the reasons why I might not look after myself. The problem is the how. And that was the kind of, it was a really light bulb moment for me. It was like, yeah, God, people actually do understand a lot of this stuff. It's just, how do you stay consistent in training and self-development? So that's what we're going to try and figure out today. What are your thoughts when I'm saying that out loud, Charles? Like, what are your thoughts instantly? I know this is kind of how we...
Well, yeah, it's stuff that we talk about a lot. And I think the main thing you kind of hit on is, I think just generally as a wider thing, people tend to, like the media and other things, or politicians, people tend to think that we're all stupid. I think most people, people are pretty fucking smart. Sorry, I don't know if I should be swearing, but people are smart and people understand what they should be doing. People know the general things, right? Like you said, the issue is the how. People know they should eat better. People know they should sleep more, exercise more, this kind of stuff, but it's the how that's the tricky bit. And so it's not as though we constantly have fed this thing of like, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. I think people understand that. People aren't stupid. People are very smart. And people intuitively understand this stuff. But the conversation, which I think we're going to have today, is the how bit.
Okay. So and I suppose let's get straight into that then. So why do we think that people have, or why do we think and I say people, I'm saying me as well and you as well, right? Like, I know that this can show up, it shows up in everyone's life. Why is it that we can lose consistency? Why is it that we can lose motivation? What is the problem here?
I think, let's start specifically talking about exercise, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the kind of quite easy one to start with, right? I think when people start with exercise, the people widely understand that exercise is good, right? People know they should exercise more. But I think people who are struggling to do it start with trying to do tips and tricks and hacks and stuff to try and make them exercise, right? I think where it has to really start is, a lot of this stuff is, what perception do you have of exercise? Maybe first you need a change of perception before you can find the motivation, right? You need to look at it from a different angle, right? Because I was thinking about it and I was like, we're having this conversation, right? How do you stay motivated during exercise, or to do exercise and do it as one? That we're having this conversation shows that it's people want it, right? Me and you aren't having a discussion right now about how to stay consistent and motivated to eat with your mouth rather than your ears, right? Because that's not a problem that people have, right? Yeah. But people have issue with motivated staying exercising, right? So let's look at exercise. Like exercise, if we really look at it, exercise is unnatural. It's not natural, exercise, right? Movement is natural, but exercise isn't. Exercise is something that we've created to offset our lack of movement due to our culture and our society, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the blue zones in the world, people who live a long time, those people aren't exercising. They have a lifestyle that means they move a lot, right? So people who go, oh, I find it difficult to exercise. And I culturally know that it's good for me. Oh, what's wrong with me? No. Exercise is unnatural. It's a natural reaction to maybe think, oh, like this is a pain. You've got to be like, I've got to go out of my normal habit to go to a weird place, to jump on a weird machine and do something that feels uncomfortable. So yeah, that's normal. That's unnatural. So I think if we kind of change that perception a little bit of what exercise is, and really firstly understand that exercise, not that exercise is bad, but it's unnatural. So it's normal to have that reaction to it, right? I think then we can start to kind of think about, okay, how can I start finding motivation once I've changed that perception? Rather than feeling guilty about not exercising, understanding what exercise really is, and that what it really comes down to, in my mind, is just movement, moving more. Just got to move more. And exercise is one way of doing it. Going to the gym is one way of doing it. And we speak a lot about this as well, right? Gardening, going for a walk, rock climbing, all these things are movement. But a lot of people don't think of those things as exercise.
And do we think that because, here's an interesting thing, do we think because they don't see it as exercise, they don't get the benefits of that?
Yeah. I think, yeah. Culturally, like a lot of this stuff, you talk about this all the time, the cultural perception is the huge thing. Culturally, through Nike adverts or documentaries or this or that, whatever, or TV and films, we see exercise presented as one particular thing, right? Exercise is go hard or go home. Just do it. You got to be sweaty. You got to suck. You got to be suffering. You got to lift heavy weights. You got to be running fast. And so we, as a culture, think we hear exercise is good for you, right? then our visual perception of exercise is what I just described. If we don't see ourselves doing that, we then feel that we're not exercising. Therefore, we don't think we're getting the benefit, and then we feel unmotivated to keep doing whatever it is, right?
You know, there's a fantastic bit of research. So you know, like that book I kept telling you to read, Spark by, hold on, so
the yellow cover, yeah.
So, there we go. So for those at home, there you go, Spark. So there's a really bit of mind-blowing research that he talks about this in this book. And that is that they basically looked at a bunch of like housemaids, like chambermaids in America, right? Like working in hotels. And there was like kind of really poor physical health and mental health amongst kind of chambermaids. Like a lot of them kind of overweight and a lot of them very stressed. And the researchers couldn't quite understand or wanted to explore, like, why are they overweight, right? Because they do so much movement in a day, right? Like, and so much physical movement, like they're burning a lot of calories in the day. So what they did was they spoke to the chambermaids, and I can't remember the chambermaids. I don't know if that's the right word, but they spoke to the maids, and they were like, you know, trying to get to them, and they didn't see their job as exercise. They didn't class it as exercise. They just classed it as doing their job. So then what they did, the researchers, they basically went on an education campaign with a load of chambermaids and, again, maids and chambermaids like back in the day. But they went on a campaign and they put up like they showed them educational videos. They put up signs around the hotel, like in their workspaces, saying like, you know, you burn up to 100 calories changing a bed. Like you burn up to X calories doing this. Like what you're doing is classed as exercise. The researchers came back after a period of time and they saw a dramatic change because they shifted the person's mindset.
Perceptual change, right?
Perceptual change. They started to get the physical benefits of their job. Right? Like, how crazy is that? Like, because they changed their perception of what exercise was, they started to get health benefits. They lost weight. They reduced their likelihood of like diabetes. Like it was just, and it wasn't like they felt in their well-being score, they felt healthier, happier. They felt like they were managing stress more effectively just through a simple mindset intervention.
Wow. But look, I think it's just crazy. But it comes down to that point, right? Where I think the start point often is, what tip, trick, or hack can I do to get myself to do this thing? And you're trying to push a boulder up a hill that you can't do. Right? And it's like, if you just took a second, rather than trying to push the ball up the hill, look around the hill first, look at all different perceptions. Oh, wait, there's a chairlift around the back. I can put the boulder on the chairlift, right? You can see there's different perceptions. And so it's really important, I think, to not just jump on the first method or tool or trick or tip that someone offers. It's to try and understand these things that you're finding difficult from different perceptions. But like, okay, what really is this thing? Think of it differently. Think of it critically. Hear different people speak about it. Get a real understanding of what it is. And you'll often find that once you understand it from a different side, the mindset completely changes and motivation isn't really an issue, or discipline doesn't become an issue. It's a lot easier to do these things, right? So I think that mindset thing is huge. And we've got to stop falling into the traps of there's one answer, there's one method, there's one hack, there's one trick. Because often things that offer these things are just trying to sell you something. And if you really want to find motivation and consistency, you need to really believe in it and understand it yourself. You really need to kind of not just have faith in a sense. You know what I mean?
Well, I suppose it's also being connected on a... So what I'm also thinking here is about being connected on a deeper level to the purpose behind what you're doing, right? You know, it's like, oh, I need to get, you know, I need to get fitter, or I need to, you know, get healthier. Like I should run, I should go to the gym. And you kind of connect with that very like short term, I need to lose a quick bit of weight, or I just want to feel a little bit better. And I think when you do that, you're not connecting to a bigger picture and something to anchor you to, you know? And I think for me, it's like, you know, well, why are you actually doing this? Why do you want to feel better? Like, why do you want to get into shape? Well, actually, I want to do it so I can play with my kids in 20 years' time. Oh, okay. Now we're starting to...
Well, what's that? That's a change of perception, right?
Yeah.
You've looked around that hill and looked at the different ways of, oh, wait, I'm not exercising. You know, I'm not just exercising because men's health told me to. I'm not just exercising because I feel I need to exercise in order to look a certain way to, you know, get a date, for example, right? Or all these kind of things we're constantly bombarded with. If you take a second, why do I feel like I need to exercise? Ask yourself, why? And, you know, when I train my clients, I get new clients, I ask them, what are your goals? And they're often, I want to lose weight, I want to get more muscly, I want to run a marathon, I want to do this. And then I had the confidence from Chevy, this man over here, to ask them to say bullshit. What's the real reason? Right? And then they give you another reason. And then you go, bullshit, what's the real reason? You keep going down, and it always comes back to, I want to bet, you know, they find that one thing they really like. If it's skiing, I want to be able to ski when I'm 100. Or I want to be able to go hiking when I'm 100. Or I want to be playing football with my kids when I'm 100. It always comes down to that. They want to be moving and doing the thing they enjoy doing that's moving. But they don't define as exercise, they define as moving late onto life. And it's like once they have that change perception, they go, oh, I now see the benefit every day of now going training. I see it's a lot easier because I really do want to be moving when I'm 100. I would love to play football with my kids when I'm 80. I don't want to be that guy in the wheelchair who's just sitting there on the sideline, you know? Yeah. And that, you haven't done any tricks or tips or hacks to like trick your brain or mind or whatever into doing this stuff. You haven't wasted loads of energy being disciplined, right? You just changed the perception.
Yeah, and I think
like, okay, I see this clearly now.
Yeah, I think that's. I think again, we'll make sure we get to the how-tos at the end and outline them. But I think that's a very powerful. You know, I know that I like it the bullshit. Like yeah, bullshit. Give me. I haven't done that one in a while. I have actually done that in a while. Like people say, well, why are you training for this run? Oh, because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, bullshit. Let's get to the real reason. But it's the 5 whys, right? Yeah. Like, and this is what I say to people is write down the reason that you're doing something and ask why that is important to you 5 times. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's the iceberg thing, isn't it? Like you've got, you see an iceberg and you think you see everything that's going on, but what's actually going on is deep down below the surface where the big mass is. You know, and I think that's if you really want to be connected and consistent, you've really got to know your why. You've really got to be connected to the true purpose behind why you're doing what you're doing, because this extrinsic superficial reason that you're attached to this goal of yours will not keep you consistent through the hard days. This is why you need that intrinsic motivation.
Yeah. And this is part of a bigger conversation, right? So we talk about exercise, but just generally in wider life, ask yourself, why? You know, if you're stressed about something, or anxious, or even really happy about something, just sometimes ask yourself why. Why am I feeling like this? And really understand and break it down. And they can give you real interesting changes in perception of what these drivers are. And then you can become more in control of them and more autonomous of those, rather than constantly being dragged forward by culture. That's sort of, you know, akin to like a car dragging you behind on a bit of rope. You know?
Why do we think we struggle with connecting with the true why? Why do we kind of tend to operate at such a superficial surface level with things?
We live in a world where we're master distractors. You know, Rob Wilson says this a lot, you know. We live in a society that's professionals at distraction, right? We have Netflix, phones, we have billboards everywhere, we have constant things to distract ourselves with. We never have that silence, that quiet where we can turn more inward and reflect, you know, self-reflect. And question and ask, like, okay, wait, why was I really angry today? You know, wait, why did I get really pissed off when that person said that thing? I know it was my fault, but why did I get pissed off with him? You know, because as soon as those feelings bubble up, we go to our phone. They bubble up again, we go to a TV. We bubble up again, we go to here, we go there. And so we never get that time to really kind of ask those why questions. And it's painful to do that, and it's tough, but that is where real growth is. That is where you're really going to start to understand things, change your perception on things, which opens the door for motivation or to finding consistency in things that you really want to do. So I think we live behind this stained glass window of culture.
Yeah.
That is informing us on how we should feel and do and distract us. And if we can step beyond the stained glass window and see it for what it really is, I think this conversation shifts a lot. And we don't have to have tips, tricks, and hacks to find ways around these things. We can actually see things for what they are and like you said, intrinsically I know why we're doing something. And when you really intrinsically know and feel and are passionate about why you're doing something, motivation isn't a question, you know?
Well, this is okay. So this is an intro, and I think bang on, and maybe I've started this 20 minutes too late, but it's always good. And this is a fascinating point to me. What is motivation?
Good question. Well, I guess motivation is wanting to do something.
Yeah. And right? Like you said a really fascinating point there, because it's kind of people always say, well, like, it's always such a hard, like you speak to people and it's like, why am I not motivated? I want to be motivated. Like, Chev, like, tell me, like, people watching this potentially, like, how do I get motivated? And it's almost like you shouldn't want to be motivated. It should just be something that happens organically. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's the thing. I'm like, motivation doesn't exist to me. Like, I've always said this, like, and maybe I don't deliver it the right way in this conversation now, but I'm like, motivation doesn't exist. Like, we're constantly searching for it. Like, we're looking online, we're looking at articles, we're looking for inspiration, maybe. Like, what's the difference between inspiration and motivation? But it's like, we're always constantly searching for it. And I'm like, you're not going to find it. It's not going to hide anywhere, you know, and you can put your trainers by your front door. You know, if you're not motivated to get out that front door, you're not going to pick up those trainers if they're sitting there by the front door. It might be a good cue for you, but if you're really struggling, it's not going to be the answer. The answer is kind of true. Like, you should want to do this. Like, that's the thing for me, is like getting people to connect with the real desire and the natural instinct to want to do these things.
So how would you then? What would be your answer to that then? How do you get to want to do those things?
I'm cornering myself now. This is where I'm not going to be able to answer my.
I'm thinking, like, I understand. I'm thinking from someone who's, again.
No. I hear it. I hear it.
Oh yeah, I get that, but
I think first of all, I think you start to then categorize. Like, first of all, I'm like, do you like? I don't know. I suppose we put it into different categories, right? Like, it's so let's go back to the exercise example. You know, I really want to be motivated to run and to do that. And for me, it's like, well, why aren't you doing it if you really want to do it? I probably think it comes down to an energy problem. Right? I think that you've probably got so much else going on in your life that your non-conscious mind is just not giving you the resources and tools to go out there and put one foot in front of the other. Right? That's always my thing with runners, is I genuinely think when if you want to run, or if you're training in the gym and if suddenly you stop, I truly believe that it's because it's your body saying, I've got no more energy to give you, because your life is already energy demanding enough as it is. You going and beasting yourself 3 to 4 times a week, we haven't got the resources and tools for. And I think people know this on a subconscious level. You know, I think they're fully aware that they just feel exhausted and they're tired, and as much as they enjoy it, they can't stay consistent with it. So then they just think, well, I'm a failure, you know, I can't do it. And then they step away from it, right? So for me, it's kind of then, okay, well, let's look at that. So what's the point of you moving? The point of you moving is just to feel better about yourself. It's to give you some space and time and to help you deal with the stresses of life. So I'll tell you what, and this comes to the mindset perception, let's change your movement from what you think your picture perfect movement is to something that you can actually handle in life, right? Like something that you can actually do. So let's just program in 2 walks a week. And let's make that easy for you, right? Let's put that into your commute, or let's put it into lunch times or whatever. And let's start with those small baby steps. And then people start with those small baby steps and they build in time, and then they kind of get the benefits of going for a walk. They get a little bit more energy in the tank. And then I'm like, okay, let's change one of those walks to a run.
Yeah. But this comes back to that perceptional thing again, just to keep bringing it back.
Yeah, no, dude, that's what we're here to do. Go ahead.
You say that to people, and they need to firstly know that is exercise.
Yeah.
If you just say to someone, hey, start with 2 walks a week, like you said, those chambermaids, right? They'll be thinking, this is not exercise, it doesn't count. But once you've first got to educate people, be like, no, this still counts as exercise. This is movement. 2 walks a week, start with that and get people to realize that is still exercise. You are moving blood and you are breathing heavier, right? All we're trying to do here is move blood and breathe heavier, right? That is exercise. And there is a whole range of that, from running a marathon and doing crazy CrossFit all the way to just going for a 20-minute walk. That is all exercise. It's movement. This is what the body wants. And I think a really important point to make is movement is necessary every single day of your life.
Yeah.
It is necessary. And it is also medicine. You need to move every day, right? This is a non-negotiable. This is scientifically backed up. Your body functions better when you move, because when you move, it's a necessary thing for the body to do a whole bunch of processes, move blood. Yes, it uses up energy, but it makes you better at creating energy going forward because you adapt to that. So people who say, I don't have enough energy to exercise, you've always got enough energy to even go for a small walk. And even that is going to keep your mitochondria and your energy creation processes healthy to create more energy going forward. And so I think really be able to understand exercise isn't what culturally it's defined as, right? Exercise as it's culturally defined as is unnatural, but what is natural is moving. And so exercise or movement comprises of everything from small walks to running marathons and everything in between. And every day you should pick something along that spectrum to do, right? And you should ideally pick things that you really enjoy. That doesn't feel like exercise. Gardening, walking, rock climbing, going, whatever it is, walking the dog, right? Just move every day and you will feel better.
And that's it, right? And I think it's really important just to creatively interrupt, which we're allowed to do, which is, it's like no, you mean no. People think that I'm rude. Like, no, this is what we do. We creatively interrupt. So I think it's really important. Like, and enjoyment has got to be the factor. Like, you think that you've got to go to the gym. If you don't enjoy going to the gym, if it is such a ball ache and you hate it and you don't enjoy it, don't go.
Yeah.
Right?
I think any of my clients, 20 clients, I don't train a single one at the gym.
Yeah.
Right? Not that gym's bad. Some people enjoy the gym. I enjoy going to the gym sometimes. Gym isn't good or bad, but don't think that it's exercise. It's not the sole place you exercise or the sole answer. So if you're not going to the gym, it doesn't mean.
Yeah. And I think we can start to break this down into other categories as well. It's kind of, I think, so let's give people some more examples. Like, I know a lot of people want more time to read, for example. How do I stay motivated and consistent to read? Well, first of all, look at your cultural expectations, your inside noise versus the outside noise of what reading or success of reading looks like. Like, you don't have to read a book a week to be successful at reading. You don't have to read, War and Peace to be successful at reading. And also, don't benchmark yourself versus an old version of yourself. Because, maybe when you were younger or you had time, you were able to read a book a week, right? So then your expectations are that now I've got to read a book a week, and that is the only success of reading a book a week. And if I don't read a book a week, I'm not good enough at, and I shouldn't do it anymore. And I think it's important to say, well, actually, if you just like to read trashy articles and that makes you feel better, read trashy articles. And if that makes you feel better, reading 1 page a day is good, right? Like, you don't run a marathon straight away. You learn to run a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles, and building up that load gradually is a very smart approach to any form of self-development into small, manageable chunks. And I think it's so important to just think like, so that's, I just kind of,
there's almost two, the reading the book thing, right? Let's say you're someone who wants to read, like right now I'm struggling to read each day, right? I open the book and my mind's just like, I can't even process the first sentence, right? And there's almost two reasons why that is the case, right? I think one is that you've simply had too much stimulus during the day. You've taken on too much stress, too much stimulus. Not that stress is bad or stimulus is bad, but you take on too much and your brain needs rest. It needs a reduction of stimulus in order to shift into a rested state and process and adapt. So often people tend to read during rest periods, right? End of the day, before bed, during break time, right? And those are periods where the body actually needs to not have a stimulus. So it's natural for you to find it difficult and unmotivated to read during those times, because what the body really needs is a rest period. right? So that's often one of the cases. The other case, people might feel unmotivated, is, again, this perceptual thing. Why are you wanting to read? And if you really ask yourself, it's like, if you really ask and break it down, am I wanting to read because I want to, or because it makes me look smart? And I want to look smart, you know? And why do I want to look smart? I want to look smart because I want to fit into that group. Why do I want to fit into that group? Because I have abandonment issues. Why do I want to have abandonment issues? Because of this. And you break it down in those ways, right? It's an example, but you could break that down and be like, oh, that's changed my perception of why I'm reading. Actually, I don't need to read those books. I don't need to read that much. You know, you change your perception, go, oh, I'm reading not for me. I'm actually reading for those people, or for that thing, or for that character I'm trying to build. Okay, cool. Let's change that perception. I think of this differently. I actually want to read Harry Potter again. You know, I don't want to read a book about dopamine and all that kind of stuff. Let's read a book about Harry Potter, because actually where I get enjoyment. And suddenly that change of perception allows you to take a different approach where motivation, discipline doesn't really become an issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's often those two ways. Either you're overstressed and you need rest, or you haven't really you don't quite have the best perception yet of why you're doing something.
Yeah.
And then you're just literally just pushing this rock up this hill, just suffering without really understanding why.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Oh, bro, 110%. And I think there's one thing that I'm finishing on to the next bit, talking about consistency a little bit, but coming back to a point that you made very clearly and concisely and excellently, and I think it's really important we repeat and talk about this, because I know it's something that I talk about a lot and you talk about a lot, which is where adaptations occur. We need to remove stimulus from our life. You know, and you know, it's a fantastic way that you put it, which is we often try and read in the places or we try and do stuff in times in our day when actually that's the time that our brain needs to make the adaptations from the day. You know, and it comes down to this solitude, like within itself, the practice of solitude and time alone needs to be something that people put into their lives. And this constant stimulation, this constant feeling of that we need to be productive, we need to be at the gym, we need to be reading, we need to be starting a hobby, we need to do this, and this. When actually the thing that you need to be doing is spending time with your own thoughts, so your brain, body, feelings, thoughts, emotions can all process and then kind of prepare you for the next day, as it were.
Well, let's look at this, right? This conversation is about motivation for doing things.
Yeah.
Reading, exercise, right? Self-development. Why are we wanting motivation for these things? We want motivation for these things because we want to make changes by doing those things. We are looking to exercise to get fitter or stronger, looking to read to get smarter, we're looking to do this to get better. All those things are changes. All that stuff is adaptation. All the things we're looking to get is we are looking to adapt. And as humans, as mammals and as living things, our drive is to adapt, is to improve, right? Adaptations are the key, right? You don't get better at anything without changing it and adapting, right? So that's an intrinsic feeling. We want to be motivated towards things because we want to improve and adapt, okay? So let's now look at how do you adapt? What is the adaptive process? The adaptive process is a balance between stress and rest. Stress is not bad. Stress is not good. Rest is not bad. Rest is not good. They are just things that are there, right? You stress the body, exercise, reading, working, so on and so forth, getting in heat and ice. That's a stress in the body, right? That is asking the body to make a change, right? You only then make that change when your body goes into a rested state. When you go into that rested state, your body makes the change, makes the adaptation, right? So is stress good or bad? Well, it's neither, right? Stress can be good if in the right amount, but it can be bad if not enough and too much. Is rest good or bad, right? Is recovery and chilling out good or bad? Too much or too little can be bad, but the perfect amount is good, right? So we really have to understand this culturally. Again, this is a big change of perception where we need stress and we need rest. We need the optimal amount of stress and the optimal amount of rest to see the adaptations we want. We need to stress the body to ask to make a change, then rest for the change to happen. So rest is required and necessary, and stress and rest isn't lazy. Rest is very productive. And our job as humans, if we're looking to develop and have self-development, is to find the correct and optimal balance between stress and rest on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, decade, over a decade, right, of our life, have that balance to adapt and make changes. And I think that's a real important piece and thing that's not talked about really widely in culture or in this community and all this kind of stuff is, let's please just try and stay away from the tips, tricks, and hacks and understand what's this all about. How do I educate people, and what's the perception I need to understand to start building from? What are the principles? And you need stress, you need rest in the right amount.
Yeah. And this, I think, dude, I mean, it's almost like looking in a mirror. So, so I think it's just quite funny because I think anyone who spends longer than 2 minutes with me and then now they're thinking, oh yeah, this does make sense. Like I get why these two talk a lot.
This stuff should be said
every time. And I think that's it, but it's so important
as much as possible.
And people,
I need to hear it more and more and more because the more I hear it, the more I feel like, oh yeah. Okay, I understand. Let me go back to that stuff.
And it's so important because I think people understand, like people have such it's like a roller coaster, right? Like this lack of consistency. Like, why do I stop? Why do I start? And it's, you know, talking about what Charles has said there is because most people get into first gear and they stay in first gear and they never push themselves into any other gear where they can make the adaptations, they can process the learnings, and, you know, they can kind of soak up all the stuff that they need to. They can get stronger from the run that they've been, stronger in the gym. Like what we're talking about here is fundamental to give people context. It's this relationship is stress rest. A way that you might understand it is you put the work in through the day and then you go to bed at night and your body processes and it heals and it comes back stronger. Like that's this dynamic that we have. But we don't do that enough throughout the day. We don't do it on the micro, or we don't have enough rest in a week or a month. And so I think what happens with consistency, the reason that people drop off is because they put themselves in first gear and they just run out of fuel real quick. Their system just goes, no more. Does that make sense, right?
Well, it's the stress, you know, people wake up, check their phone, commute, they're stressed, and they stay there all day. So all day they've asked their body to make changes, right? All day they've said to their body, make change, but they never were giving their body the chance to make those changes. They never gone into the rested state to make the changes until they get into bed in the evening. Then suddenly, when they're going to sleep, they're saying to their body, okay, during this 6 hours of sleep I'm going to give you, you're going to make all the changes I've asked for in the day. The body's like, what the hell? You know?
To put this into really interesting context for people, and Charles said this to me once, like it's like if you're watching this now, and if you're focused on this screen and you are listening to the words that we're saying, and if this is kind of resonating, if you're using calories and brain power to try and navigate these kind of words that we're telling you and these kind of thoughts, and you're kind of trying to assimilate it, what we're saying is this is not actually the time that you'll assimilate it. This is kind of, you know, this is the stress. This is us causing you a little bit of frustration. This is us causing you a little bit of struggle. This is where we're kind of trying to prod and probe. And this is where we're challenging you. Where your brain and your body and your physiology and your psychology will make the adaptations from this conversation is when you go for a walk after, is when you have a lunch break, is when you get a good night's sleep. You know, if you just go from this conversation into a meeting straight away and then you keep doing that for the rest of the day and you get 3-4 hours sleep, like you might have echoes of this conversation, but the odds of you assimilating this and putting it into your life workflow, your way of thinking or whatever massively reduces. You need to give yourself space and time to process this.
Well, like, you know, let's optimally, right? Let's say we do this call, right? Both me and you have been stressed by it. We've been stimulated. People listening. Ideally, we'd all, straight after this call, go and do 3 to 5 minutes of anything that really reduces stimulus. You could be having a 3 to 5 minute nap, breath work, go for a walk, whatever it is, right? There you're going to make the adaptations to what this call. So ideally is every time you go through something that's stress, you then allow yourself to rest. So the day should look like this, right? But often this looks like this. But that's the challenge, is find those times to bring yourself back down. And it's like, you know, like talk about the simulation. If you're working on a Word doc, you're playing a computer game, right? When you press save, you can't do any more work while it's saving. You have to stop, let the document save, and then you go back to work. The same with us, but throughout the day, we never press save. Our pressing save is when we go to sleep. What if we press save multiple times throughout the day, where we could kind of assimilate and then go back up, right?
And that's consistency, right? Like that's consistency. Consistency is not going to the gym and doing high intensity every day or going for a run every single day or reading every spare moment of the day. That is not consistency. That's being consistent at blowing out at some point, right? Like that's a consistent process to burning out or stopping or not being consistent. I think consistency is knowing, like you say, is when to, hit save. It's when to be on and not. It's consistency in stopping and starting, right? And I think that's what people need to understand. We tend to think consistency is this upward trend where we just keep doing this thing. We keep running, we keep going. No, it's consistency in the running, but then consistency in the recovery. Consistency in the running, consistency in the recovery. Consistency in the running, consistency in the recovery. And I think that's where we get the misconception of being consistent.
Yeah. Well, just culturally again.
I like the save one, by the way. Well played.
Yeah. But I think, again, there's that consistency, and it's just, we're all so often duped by what culturally we're told. We're told consistency is you've got to consistently be just hitting it hard, consistently hitting it hard. It's like anyone who's consistently hitting it hard might do that for a year or two, but they're going to burn out, right? They're going to be toast, and then they're going to really struggle to get back. And so, great. Is consistency a 1 or 2 year period? No. Consistency is over your lifetime. Right? And it's making those small little adjustments now. Stress, rest, not feeling guilty about going into a rested state, and managing that balance rather than just being like, right, I'm going to go hit it hard. Just do it,
So here's the question for you. So I know you talk about it well, and I think there's a couple of things for me, like how to get, I want to start getting to the how-tos, but before we get to some kind of more how-tos, which hopefully we've done quite a bit of today, but whenever you talk about motivation, the conversation of discipline comes into play, right? Like, how can I be more disciplined? What's your take on this relationship between being motivated and being disciplined?
Well, we talked about this a bit. I have a perception, and again, it might just be the way I look at the words, but motivation, we kind of already talked about, is doing something you want to do.
Yeah.
And discipline is doing something you don't want to do. Right? I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to eat a salad every day. Right? And so there's maybe a time and place to be disciplined, but discipline, if it's something you don't want to do to some degree, right? And I think maybe you're going to pick and choose what you are disciplined with. And if you're just, okay, here's an example. I've got a client who was like, right, I'm going to train every day. I'm going to have a salad every day for lunch and dinner. I'm going to train every day, right? And be really disciplined. I this is what I need to do. And I was like, no, I don't think you should do that. You're going to burn out, right? They did that for 2 weeks, and then they fell off the wagon, right? Great, you were disciplined, great, but at what cost, right?
Yeah.
Maybe motivation would have been, how could I have maybe done half that amount, but it lasted for years, right? Because then you find that balance that you like, and you find the balance between stress and rest that your body can actually handle. Because often discipline, again, people have a different perception of discipline, but for me, what I think people think of as discipline is suffering.
Yeah.
And when you start to become disciplined, you tend to run into the issue of taking on too much stimulus in a day and being too stressed and not giving enough time to rest and actually make the adaptations. And that all we know is that leads to chronic stress, and that leads to short run issues and long-term serious issues. Right?
Yeah.
Discipline, culturally defined, leads people down that route. Right? And it's a kind of somewhat of a controversial statement among some people, but I generally not sure about discipline. Does that make sense? I don't know.
No, it does. I
it's
think
an interesting conversation, but some people think discipline is a great thing, but often it's just depends again, perception depends how you think about the word discipline and how
I think you're right, because I think culturally most people, when I hear the word discipline is not a word that's ever come into my coaching vocabulary. I've never turned around and said to anyone, you need to be more disciplined, because I feel like all of a sudden I'm putting a level of pressure on them, and it's just a much, like you say, I think it's just a harder gear, right? Like you're forcing things to happen. And I don't think you lose your intuition, which people struggle to have anyway. You're not listening to your inside view. You're kind of forcing yourself to go out on that run. You're forcing yourself to run through that niggle in your knee. You know, you're forcing, because I've got to be disciplined. I've got to be disciplined. And I think I think discipline creates a real big disconnect between body and mind. I think it's the word just intersects the two and just puts a massive wall up between them.
Let's look at this. It could be argued that people who need discipline lack mind-body connection.
Yeah.
Because if you have mind-body connection, right, or you have the inside view, as Chevy talks about, if you have that connection, that inside view, you know when you should push stuff and when you should rest, when you should stress yourself and when you should rest, right? Your body will tell you, hey, I need to chill today, or hey, I need to go on holiday, or hey, I need to do this, or hey, I could push it today. Discipline is when you're so lost and you don't know what your body can and can't handle and take. You have to rely on that crutch of discipline. You have to rely on that to be like, okay, I just got to just tunnel vision and go. And I think people who seem to develop mind-body connection, develop that inside view and that intrinsic understanding of, firstly, what is stress and rest, what are their roles, and how much stress and rest do I need each day, and when do I need them? People who develop that don't really require discipline.
Yeah.
Because they have autonomy and they're empowered to know when they should push and when they should ease off. I think discipline tends to be those who are just like, I'm just so lost and confused, but I know culturally that this is good, that's bad, this is good. Okay, let me just piece those puzzles together and write them down. Okay, I need to do this, this, and this. Let me be disciplined and just do them without really understanding why, when, what, how, and what they need. And sometimes it can work, but most often than not, all it's going to do is lead you down that path of just chronic stress, which is probably the most dangerous thing culturally in our society at the moment. You know, it's leading to so many long-term health issues, from cancer to depression to heart disease to diabetes, chronically being in that stress state. And we're seeing mental health issues go through the roof and everything else. And I feel that discipline isn't the answer, right?
Dude. And I know, I mean, yes, I mean, I know. I feel like, but it's one of those, people we're having conversations for people at home. Like, I'm just like, I don't need to say anything. Like, yeah, I get it. How does that chronic stress, we're going to talk about this, we might as well, because, you know, people are getting stuck in gear. We know chronic stress is a huge problem. The subject today is motivation. Might be obvious, might not be, but how does stress and motivation intertwine, right? Like, how, in your thoughts, how does one get in the way of the other, as it were?
So you just cut out there.
Sorry. How does stress and motivation kind of, you know, fight against each other? So, you know, what role does stress play around not being motivated or being challenged around motivation?
So do you mean like, well, I think if you've taken on, let's say you've taken on too much stress in a given day, you're going to find it harder to motivate.
Yeah.
So you talk about, you've got a battery every day of energy to use, right? And let's say you wake up and you go straight to a stress state. It might just be a small stress state, not running from a large stress, just a little stress. And you stay in there all day. But at the end of the day, you're going to have run out of energy. Your battery's flat. And then you're going to, I really wish right now I could exercise and eat healthy. And you go, oh, but I don't have the motivation. No, you just run out of energy, right? Because you've been in that stress state for so long. If during that day you would go into a stress state and then come out, in and out, and we'll get into how you can do that later, but in and out of that stress state, you've stressed the body, asked to make a change, you've come back, you've made the change and replenished your battery. And you've done that multiple times a day. By the end of the day, when you need the motivation to do your run or you eat healthily, you've got a full battery, or you've got enough battery in the tank, right? And so often I think people think they're not motivated, but actually they're overstressed, right? And you shouldn't feel bad on yourself for not being motivated at the end of the day to do something, right? Because it's not that you lack motivation, you lack energy. You lack energy because you've spent too much in a stress state and not enough in a rest state. And you've done that because culture has defined how you should live your life, and you've lacked the ability to perceive it in a different way. And that's not a slight on anyone, because I have the same thing. We all have it. It's just part and parcel of being in here. And that's why we need communities like this and your friends and family in these places where we can kind of reestablish that real perception and think about things from a different perception, so that that can start from that end of the cycle and it shifts through all the way back up that chain I just talked about, back up to end of the day on Friday. Am I having a massive Domino's blowout, or am I having a little bit of a better option? You know, and there's no tips or tricks and hacks that will last you the rest of your life to change that thing. It goes all the way back to that change of perception.
Yeah. To
change how you deal with stress, to change how you manage your rest, to then change your energy levels.
Yeah, dude, and that's I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad we didn't get too lost. I was kind of almost purposely at the beginning was trying to not start the energy narrative too much because I thought we're getting. But bro, 110%, right? Like it's what I say about motivation. It's like you want to go to the gym, like, or you know what I mean? Like some people don't want to, that's fine, but you want to get healthier, you want to read, or you want to do all these things. So what's the missing ingredient? Why is it? And that could be that you don't connect with it on a longer, deeper level. But if you do, but you're still struggling, then I'm like, you've just got an energy problem. Right? And this can be people to help people understand that, you know, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and behaviors are all influenced by our body's way to, you know, how it spends energy, how it converts energy. You know, willpower and self-control are muscles that deplete throughout the day. The more energy we spend, the more we use them, the more tired we get. So then if it's the end of the day and you're standing there deciding, you know, should I go for a run or not go for a run? You've used up all those muscles. You've used up all that energy because you've been using that energy to wear your mask, make sure everything's okay, to better deal with your boss, to better listen to things like this. And that's what it's so important. And I'm repeating this, but repetition is the key to change, which is just that it's so vital to understand that it literally can just be an energy problem. It's not that you're missing some magic mojo or some voodoo. It's just that, you know, and a simple one, and you've heard me say this a million times, like you wake up in the morning and you feel like I can wake up in the morning and I'm super motivated not to eat a pack of biscuits on my counter in my house until like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. But then as soon as my energy is depleted from the day, that's it. Like it's game over. Like, and
so this comes back to, okay,
and it's
how do I create more energy?
Yes.
Right? And this is just to bring it back to the exercise thing. That's why daily movement is so important, because movement of any capacity is training your body to get better at making energy. Right?
Yeah.
So yes, it uses up energy and it can be uncomfortable, but guess what? That's life. Life's uncomfortable. You need a discomfort. You need stress to make change. So be motivated or not, whatever it is, just get out and move, whatever it is, because you're going to create more energy in the long term by doing that stuff. But how do I create my energy? We don't lack as a society the drive to want to do things, right? There's 1,001 things. We live in an amazing world where we could do a lot of things, watch a lot of stuff, engage with a lot of stuff, learn with a lot of things, but we lack the energy to do it. So skill becomes, how do I create more energy? And if you change your perception of what rest means and realize that rest isn't lazy, rest is where you build back energy. Cool. Now I understand that. Throughout the day, I'm going to now spend some time resting. So a lot of my corporate clients, who for them it's like, you know, rest is lazy, rest is unproductive, you know, rest is for the wicked, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead. When I explain to them what rest means, they go, fuck, all right, I'm going to take a nap in the day. I might take 3. I might take some breathwork sessions. I might go for a walk here. So they understand, actually, by doing this, I'm building up my energy reserve so I can engage more powerfully with things throughout the day and ask for more adaptations, make more adaptations, and maintain that over the long term. What I didn't do was make them really disciplined or build loads of motivation and pop them up so they just went out and pushed it. I just changed their perception of what a word meant and understood what it did, and then they found the motivation themselves, right? Again, there's no magic bullet, there's no magic trick, tip, or hack. I think this perceptual thing is huge. Educate on what the perception is and really question yourself. Take that time, that rest time, to not only build energy, to not only adapt, but also to question and be like, okay, well, what's my perception of these things? And that's how we're constantly growing and adapting and learning and evolving. And
basically what Charles is saying, what you're saying is it's just you just treating people like they're adults in the sense of like, and they're smart human beings. Like we know that people are going to be more consistent through change when they're educated on the whys. Right? When people truly understand why they're doing something, then they're going to be, you know, I think like say we try and amp people up and the world of well-being or fitness or whatever it is tries to give people that magic juice, but it's like, let's stop treating people like idiots and let's give them the education and the knowledge, and then they can do it themselves. Like
we said at the start, people aren't idiots. People aren't idiots. People are smart. They just need the right foundation. If you give them the right perception of things and the right education, it's like they'll work it out. People work it out. It fits into place. The reason that we're having this conversation about, we said, motivation for exercise, is because the question is wrong in the first place. Exercise is unnatural. It's a weird perception. We don't have the wrong perception of what exercise is, right? Once we understand that exercise is unnatural, but movement is natural, right? It changes. And it's just start there. I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that's helped me, and I think helps a lot of people we work with, is having those conversations, change the perception before you try and spend loads of energy being disciplined or loads of energy finding this motivation from someone, having to watch videos to pump yourself up, or having to like shit on yourself to be like, oh, you're terrible. If you don't do this, you're a disappointment. Who's that helping?
Yeah.
There's multiple ways up the mountain. Discipline is one of them. Motivation is one of them. But like that change perception is just another one. I'm not saying it's the best, but what we found is the most energy efficient, and it's the most consistent way of sorting these things.
And I think that's important to say. Like, we're not saying, everyone needs a playlist on sight, sounds, and smells are all ways of cueing behaviors. Like, we can create an association with these things to help get us into a certain state to be able to do what we need to do. So, and sometimes, it can be great looking for a quote that gets you thinking differently or whatever it may be. But it's, like you said, there's nothing wrong with either of any of these things. It's just about, you have different things in the toolbox, but definitely expand the why. Like, again, we come back to the whys, but just expand on that. I think what was important, and I suppose I'm from creating a conversation out of it or not, but I just, something that flashed up to me, and I just want to make sure people realize it's just that it's also understanding that, within, and I think I'm going back to that consistency thing again, which is, stress, rest. It's kind of like, and so forth. But also understanding that on a real macro scale, which is, it's, like you said at the moment, like you're not reading at the moment, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're struggling, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And it will, and these things are cyclical. But these things come.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. But these things they come in cycles, and I think that's really important for people to understand that once you're not, even if you worked with me and Charles and 5 other coaches that we know and had a great team, and we could impart the knowledge of the Dalai Lama on you, I don't know, and we could give you all of this stuff. At some point, it's going to change. You're going to just stop. You might get injured, or you might just not be bothered, or it might not just be a time in your life where you can focus, but that's okay.
Well, it's that empowerment piece. Once you understand, so for example, like talk about me struggling to read at the moment, right? Because I now understand why I'm struggling, right? Because I understand why I'm struggling, I'm not stressed that I'm struggling, right? I go, oh, I understand why I'm struggling. Cool. Rather than being like, I'm struggling. Oh my God, I'm struggling. Oh my God. You get stressed about it. And this is the big conversation me and Chevy had last year, is I was, not in a great place mentally, but I understood why. And I wasn't stressed about being stressed. I wasn't down about being down. I was down, but I was perfectly okay with it because I understood why. And I didn't get stressed or down about being down, right? I think a lot of us, we go, right, I'm unmotivated, and therefore I'm going to be upset at myself for being unmotivated. But what if you understand I'm unmotivated, and right now I'm unmotivated because of this? You don't have that extra layer of anger or upset about being unmotivated, right? And it's that constant layering that can really overwhelm people and snow people under. And once you really understand that, like, why am I unmotivated right now? Why am I not consistent? It's not because I'm a failure. It's not because I'm rubbish, or not because I'm not good. It's because when you understand the stress-rest relationship, you understand, I'm not balancing it well. And maybe right now in my life, I've got to work really hard. If you're a nurse right now, you're going to have to work really bloody hard, right? And so you're going to find it difficult to do a lot of things. But you should be okay with that because you understand why. Because as humans, we're amazing in our ability to deal with a lot of stress over the short term, right? And it's just, they've got to make sure that once they come out of that, they then take some time to recuperate and rest and recover, right? And so understand that you can take a lot of stress, but understand what the ramifications are and don't beat yourself up about them. Try and revert and find that right balance. Like you said, things change and things get back to normal and things will always find their way, but don't keep digging yourself into the hole.
Preach. I'm okay. It's probably one of my favorite sayings that I stole from our conversations that I use a lot, which is just like, I'm okay with not being okay, and I think that was my favorite thing that you reflected through to me last year when like say you were going through those challenges, which is, I'm just okay with not being okay. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that I try and impart on anyone that I work with now. It's just, it's cool. Like it fine.
Happens.
It's cool.
It's a natural thing that happens.
Perfectly natural thing. So just let it be, and that's where I think it's, well, what can I do in that situation? And I think, as you did, this is why we talk about the basics so much. Like, I trust that the supercomputer on the top of your head will be able to navigate your way through this.
Let's speak about that. Like, let's say the reason I was down, right, or feeling stressed and anxious stuff was because maybe in the 6 to 8 months leading up to that, I was in way too much of a stress state.
Yeah.
Compared to rest state for about 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Right. And my body then eventually just said, okay, this is how you're going to behave now. This is the effects of that, right? You're going to not be cognitively functioning very well and you're going to feel quite low and stuff. That's a normal reaction physiologically and mentally to have to being in a stress state for 6 to 8 months. That's a very normal reaction. And once I understood that, I stopped beating myself up about being lethargic and unmotivated and all that stuff, because I realized, this is just a normal reaction to the behavior I had been engaging in for the past 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not down about being this. What I can control right now is I'm going to nap more. I'm going to go for more walks. I'm going to focus on my recovery. I'm not going to keep digging myself in the hole by needing motivation, discipline to keep maintaining this. I screwed myself by not managing that stress-rest relationship for 6 to 8 months. I'm seeing ramifications now. It will pass, but I've got to manage this period now, not be down about being down, let it ride out, do the things that I can control, take on a bit more rest, get back to baseline and normal. And then, since then, I've been a lot better with myself about, okay, every day making sure I go for a little walk or move every day or have little naps or have breathwork sessions, pre-bed, all this kind of stuff. Just looking after myself, spending more time in a rest state. And I found that actually I can take on more stress now. I can take on almost as much stress as I had during that 6 to 8 months because I'm adding in more rest in the day. And it's just that's learning because of percent. And I manage my energy better. And I don't feel I need to necessarily rely on motivation right now. As in false motivation. I have real motivation, I feel. Because I feel I have energy. Right? That's
it, right? If you look after the power cord attached to the supercomputer on top of your head, and how do we look after the power cord? We look after the basics. We look after our sleep. We can look after the breath. We can look after the movement, like just very, very basic stuff, which can then give us access to the things that we need to give access to. And I think, and it's just great. And I think that's, again, coming back to it, it's like motivation we're all different, but for me, it's like when I'm looking after the power cord, and I'm starting to get back to baseline and I'm just doing stuff, like I just am. It's not like I'm super motivated or super amped. I'm just doing. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a more elegant way of putting it than that. Like it all just comes naturally, and I'm just listening to what I should be doing today, and it's just all occurring naturally.
So do you think it's worth now, because we spoke a lot about stress, rest, and the importance. Do you think it's now I think we should go over some applicable ways that you can find more rest.
Well, you kind of beat me to, so this is it. We want to finish on this how too. So absolutely. So what are we going to try and get across, right? Like how to find more rest in your day, right? So should we kind of go through that? Go on. So hit me up. What do you think? What are your thoughts? What are the takeaways?
So I think we spoke a lot now about the perception. So I think people now have a better understanding of motivation, those kind of things, and realize, okay, I have a different perception of how I can look at these things.
Yeah.
I now understand that I need to stress myself, because stress, I suppose, make a change, but I also need to find more time to rest to make those changes a reality, to adapt to make those adaptation changes. So how do you find more stress in the day, right? I mean, rest in the day. How do I do that, right? Think of rest simply as a limiting of stimulus, right? The limiting of stimulus, right? Anything that is overstimulating will stress you, okay? So if we start with that principle of a limiting of stimulus, the most limiting of stimulus will probably be asleep, right? You're out, your eyes are closed, you're done. It's a limiting of stimulus, right? So that's almost at the bottom. But let's say that you're a soldier, or you're in a or you're a nurse right now. You can't go sleep all day, right? If you're in the middle of a war zone or you're in the middle of a hospital at the moment, you can't just go have a sleep or have a nap, right? If you can during the day have a nap, great. If you can't, there's other things that you can do. So we talk about things that you can do in free time and real time, right? So let's start with free time. Free time, I'm talking about is sleep. You can have a sleep in free time, right? But most people don't have free time until the evening, right? And at that time, it's almost too late. You're not going to motivate yourself to have a little chill at the end. Free time you could also do what we call stuff like yoga nidra. So you can Google that kind of stuff. Yoga nidra is a great way of getting to a deeply rested state without actually going to sleep. So Google yoga nidra. They're 5 minute or 10 minutes, 15 minute, 20 minute ones you can do. And shout out to Andrew Huberman for recommending those.
Yeah.
Also in free time, breath work, right? Dedicated breath work. You can get a breath work app or just sit quietly and just breathe in and out through your nose for 2 to 5 minutes or 2 to 10 minutes, right? So we start looking at these free times in the day, right? So there's free times in the day. If you've got an hour, you can have a nap. But most people don't have an hour spare. If you've got 5 minutes, you can do a huge amount of work. You can really shift your state. If me and Chevy stopped this call right now and got everyone listening to breathe in and out through their nose, nice and calm for 5 minutes, you would be in a radically different state of mind. You would feel very sleepy and relaxed. And people generally have 5 minutes in their day to do those things. And so it's finding those times in the day, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, find those times to do some slow controlled breath work. Don't worry about numbers for the time being. Just worry about through my nose, am I breathing in and breathing out, nice and calmly. So those are kind of things you can do in free time as well as going for a walk, right? Anything that's limiting a stimulus. Closing your eyes or just being still, not engaging with anything, going for a walk are great ways of resting, right? Anything you want to add to that, Chevy, or no? And then I think the other side of this is...
Dude, it's about, think of it, we can scroll through my Instagram now and it's probably, go for a walk, have a breath and we're good. Like, that's it.
I think it's that simple. And don't, like I said, don't worry yourself with these tricks, tips and hacks, right? You don't need to go put things on your head and get in an egg and... on just various things that's anything that you can think of that limits stimulus, anything that works for your day that limits stimulus, engage with in free time. And then where the real powerful thing is in real time. In real time, if you're in a meeting, right? If you're in driving the car, or if you're in a war zone, or if you're halfway through dealing with a patient or halfway to a client, right? You can still shift yourself down into more of a rested state. The biggest thing you can do is breathe through the nose rather than the mouth. Breathing through the mouth shifts you into that stress state, or more what we call a stress or sympathetic tone, or more of a stress direction. Breathing through the nose shifts you more towards a parasympathetic tone or a rested state, right? And that's something you can do in real time. You don't need to stop what you're doing. You can still do what you're doing and just change the way you're breathing. You're breathing anyway. Why not just take conscious control and change that? And that's something that you can really powerfully do in real time to change that state. Are you sitting at your desk working like this, or right? If you sat all day at your desk working through the mouth compared to through the nose, you'll have a radically different outcome at the end of the day in terms of your energy levels, your motivation, and your health, right? So these are things that you can do in real time. There's other things in real time, but I think to start with, that's the easiest thing. Don't worry about all these other little things. Just think about in real time, I can change if I'm breathing through my nose or my mouth. Yeah. In free time, I can try and limit stimulus, whether that's walking, sleeping, breathing, just sitting still, looking out a window.
It's funny. Right? I've just brought it up on screen. I'm just checking my technical know-how here. I've just brought up on the screen, the stress circle, the energy cycle. that I do. So I've just brought that up for people because I think it's just a really good, and actually I think you've just, I never really described it like this before, but I think, where you start to open the cycle is that's real time, right? And then the space between, where the arrow finishes, like I'm just describing it to you, Charles. I know you've seen it, Charles, but for me, that is the real time thing. Like we open up these energy cycles, and as we're actually in this energy and stress cycle, whether that's a meeting or whatever, that is real time. And then the space afterwards, that is your free time, and I think that's a great way. And I think it's, I think it's just really so important to highlight the simplicity of what Charles is saying, what we're saying. Like, honestly, I go through a lot of my content and I look at a lot of the stuff that I'm writing and I'm like, am I really talking about just taking some nasal only breaths again? Am I just talking about going for a walk again? Like, at what point are people just going to get bored of me? Like, I need some magic voodoo here. Like, or I need to, and it's almost as a coach, like my inside imposter syndrome narrative is saying like, I have to do more. I have to do more. I have to come up with something amazing. But it's genuinely like evolution has designed these tools over millions of years, and evolution has got it damn right, Yeah. And it's
sorry to interrupt.
Please.
But just to get to your point. You said you're feeling I need something more. That's culture trying to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because Instagram, you constantly need to put out something new, something exciting. Guess what? It really is that simple.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason we feel, it's got to be more. It's got to be more complex. It's got to be more this, because we live in this culture where it's like the new fad, the new thing. It's a constant, we have to drive new products and things. No. It's simple. It may sound wishy-washy and whatever, but it's scientifically backed up. If you limit stimulus, you will shift into a rested state, right? And you can do that whichever way that you find works for you to limit stimulus.
Yeah.
We listed out some ways, but for other people, it's different things, right? People go, I recover by going for an ice bath. An ice bath is very stimulating, right? You don't tell me that you go in there and think, that is a very stimulating thing. Yes, there may be some recovery things, but because you've stressed the system first.
Yeah.
So don't think that if you go from a stress state and I'm going to go to rest now and get an ice bath, that's not a rest. Limit stimulus in whichever way you can. We're not going to give you methods and things. You can create those things, and that's the power of it.
Yeah.
Sleep, walking, nasal breathing, sitting down, meditating, mindfulness, yoga nidra, spa, going for a walk, looking out a window, doing very simple kind of like mindfulness, painting, whatever it is. And it's just...
I think there is also with it, there's some gray areas here as well. It's because, I think we've both kind of made it clear that it's like, look, reading is great, but reading can be, your brain is still stimulated. But sometimes if you're throughout the day and you are massively stimulated and you're just trying to bring yourself down a couple of notches, maybe reading for 10 to 15 minutes will help in that moment. Like it might not be, it's just differences, right? Like we're trying to say, it's there's no right or wrong here. Like sometimes, like how do I close the energy cycles throughout the day? How do I spend my free time? I spend my free time in 3 ways. Like the way that I push back on my stress response is simple. I'll do a breath protocol, I'll walk, and I'll go for I'll read, and I'll do 5 minutes of breathing, 10 minutes of walking, or 15 minutes of reading. And that's kind of 3 things that I have. And sometimes I need to read because I'm just kind of not ready to like it's just different levels of like pushing back. It
depends on the stress.
Yeah.
If you've just been chased by a lion, reading's not going to do enough to bring you back into rest state.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you've been chased by a lion, you're going to need to do some slow control breathing, right? Really bring yourself down, right? If you've just, let's say, me and Chevy just had this call, right? It's a stress. We're thinking, we're engaged, we're thinking of ideas. It's stimulating, right? After this, a book could be a perfectly applicable thing to use to chill yourself out because it's still less of a stimulus than this, right? And so it's about that mind-body connection we talked about. If you put that mind-body connection, that intrinsic voice, you understand, I just engaged with this stress, and this is the rest I need now to balance that out, right? And there's no cookie cutter approach to that. You can make those decisions. You can be like, I've taken on this stress. So for me right now, every time that I exercise, I do 5 minutes of breath work after to chill myself out, right? Because I want to adapt to that training as soon as possible. but B, because I want to bring myself into that rested state so I'm not constantly in a stress state.
Yeah.
And for me, that works. For other people, they may need longer or less or something else. Some people like going for a little walk after, right? Some people have a long shower. Some people read a book. It's just, there's no right or wrong, but it's just you start to develop yourself. Here's a high stimulus. I've done this high stimulus because I want to make a change. To make that change, I need to get back to rested state. What do I need to do right now to get into that rested state? You make the decision. You choose what works for you to get back into that rested state. Bring yourself back down. There you go. You made adaptations. You managed things. You've maintained energy levels, right? Which means that you can consistently do these things day after day after day after day after day. And guess what? There you start seeing real long-term growth. And then you can start playing with your kids when you're 100 years old because you made these small changes.
Yeah,
right.
That's the compound health side, right? And that's what we continuously try and bark on about. It's, consistency is not consistency over a week or a 3-month period. This is about trying to be as consistent over as many days as possible over a lifetime. It's the small 1% gains this year on next year on next year on next year. It's the compound health, compound well-being, and it's I think just so, when we're looking at consistency, it's consistency within a lifetime. If I can get more days good than bad this year, whatever that good and bad is in my own world, in my own head, in my own narrative, how I define them, like I've won, it's for me, it's like that, just more good than not.
Do you think sometimes sorry, again.
Go.
I think for me, when I think of that 1% better every day or that compound thing too much, it stresses me out, right? And I go, I've got to be 1% better every day, and there's something I've got to do. We always talk about this. It's like, might sound wishy-washy, but like, okay, be present, right?
Yeah.
In the moment. I try not to think about tomorrow or the next month, the next year or 10 years. I try to think right now, what's my body telling me? My body's telling me, hey, you've taken on a bit of stress right now. You need to chill out. So it's as consistent, just being aware of what my body's telling me and making those changes daily. And that will lead to long-term changes.
Yeah.
But the goal shouldn't be, I'm doing this now because in 10 years' time I want to have this. Yeah, in the back of your head, but it shouldn't just be a constant thing you're referring to. It should be, what's my body telling me right now? And I've understood I stress myself. Okay, let's find a time to rest, right? And then you start finding, you work out, you're empowered to create your own method and how you do that. And again, I don't want to just say that it's bad to think that way, but it's just... No,
dude, I think you're right. And I think there's...
1% every day, it's just like another kind of like, oh my God, I've got to be 1% better every day.
Dude, no. I absolutely, I absolutely get it. Like, it's, I think you can... by putting numbers in place, and I think we're always constantly aware of that. As you throw number, you're absolutely right, because people then put that pressure on themselves, like, oh God, right, 1% is better today, 1% better today, 1% better today. So no, I totally get that, and I think it is just that continuous, understanding of just the now. Just what do you need today, right here, being able to read that, being able to understand that, being able to influence that. And if you just focus on that, the rewards will come naturally. You don't even have to think about it. You don't have to focus on it. Your supercomputer will start to open up for you. You'll start to find more energy for life, energy for loved ones. You'll start to see health benefits. You'll start to see that you're managing stress more efficiently. It will be so subtle, and that's the thing. It will start to happen if you just focus on the here and now. And what's wonderful about it is that's what you can actually control in a world where you feel like you can't control so much and we feel like so much is out of our control. Well, actually the thing that you can control right now is going for a walk around, the block, going and doing 2 minutes of breath work, 10 inhales and exhales. Like, you can control these very small things that will create big internal change that will help you be consistent, stay motivated, and do whatever it is that you need to do.
Oh yeah.
I love that, Charles Oxley. I think we kind of... I'm happy with that, because I think it is, I want to make sure that we're walking away with some how-tos and some very simple basics. And I think for me, the big thing that I hope people take away from this conversation, the very small big thing that I hope they take away is free time versus real time. And if you revisit anything in this conversation, I would say start there and just focus on that free time versus real time. Take away some of those actions, take away some of those tips. And if you need to be sold on how breath can change your internal state, I challenge you to go and sit and do 5 minutes of nasal only breathing, focus on that exhale breath, focus on slowing the system down, and tell us how you feel afterwards, because that feeling that you have afterwards is not a wishy-washy psychological feeling. That is you putting yourself into a more rested state where you will start to make adaptations, make better decisions, manage feelings, thoughts, emotions, and all that kind of jazz. So I think for me, that's the big takeaway: real time versus free time versus real time. I love that. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add on that, buddy?
Yeah, just to say, I think I hope what our ramblings today got across is mainly just that I hope that we've managed to maybe shift some people's perception on some things. Hopefully people can start to look at exercise and stress and rest and energy and motivation from a different angle. I hope we managed to communicate that well enough. And based on that, I hope that you feel empowered to make different decisions on how you manage your stress and rest in order to unlock energy to do the things you want to do. Right? And that is kind of the aim of what we try and do, really. We're not really here to tell you what to do. We're trying to get you to think about things from a different point of view so that we can develop your decision-making process.
This is so important, bro. Like, you helped me come up. Anyone, again, you've got to only read a few of my posts to say that you already have all the tools that you need to be able to create change in your life. Like, you helped me come up with the statement that I use, like, you don't need me. Yeah. You just don't need me. You don't need us, really. Like, we can shepherd you along a little bit. We can give you some resources and some tools and some knowledge. We can get you thinking a little bit differently. But ultimately, you are your own coach, and you are more than capable of making all the change that you need once you start to focus on these kind of small little things throughout the day.
We are masters at creating energy. The body is amazing at creating energy, right? If we can change your perception to make you realize how you can make energy better, the sky's the limit of what you can achieve, right? And there's other things in there, but just really, you have all you need to get what you kind of want to get out of stuff. We're just hoping that we've changed your perception enough that we sent you down a path that you can start to make better decisions to unlock that. Because at the end of the day, we are incredible machines, incredible beings, incredible whatever it is, and you shouldn't feel guilty about things. We're just in a very bizarre environment, a very bizarre culture that tricks us. And if we can change the perception on that, we can really start to realize that we have incredible capacity, and the more we can share that with other people and help other people, the better.
Amen. Dude.
Amazing.
I love it. Charles Oxley, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much for your time. This is not going to be the last time that you'll be on here. We have a million subjects for us to discuss. What I'm actually quite looking forward to the Chevy and Charles series of when we can reflect back on these, because I promise you now, people, I am telling you now that most of these conversations will end up, no matter what subjects we have, whatever topics, whatever questions we're thrown, it will probably come back to the same stuff we talked about. Everything is everything, right? Like, we will just, in a one way or another, we will come back. It will come back to energy. It will come back to this relationship, this awareness, and we'll just keep entwining it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we expand that as different narratives, different conversations come. Dude, thank you very much, buddy. Bye.
Cheers, bro. Ciao.